Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the May 2022 meeting of Safe Silver Spring. This is our quarterly meeting with representatives of Montgomery County Police Department. We are fortunate to have as our guest, again, the commander of the 3rd District, David McBain, and he will introduce himself and his lieutenants, who will give us an update of what's going on in the 3rd District, and then we're going to open up to questions. This video will be uploaded to social media either later tonight or tomorrow. So thank you all for joining us. Commander McBain.
All right. Thank you very much, Alan. So tonight we have Lieutenant Sunyoung Kim, Lieutenant Kevin Parker, and Lieutenant Tenesha Jensen. Lieutenant Reed is actually down in at the National Airport because of the police week, and when families come in from all over the country for the memorials that are being held down in DC. So he won't be with us tonight. So I'm going to go over the George sector that he oversees, as well as with Lieutenant Jensen's going to follow up with some things that she's doing down in the George sector as well with her midnight officers. So we'll get started and we'll talk about, things, as you know, we'll go all around the whole district. We're going to start in the George sector, and we'll move up into the Ida sector and Henry sector. And I'll let all of my lieutenants kind of give updates of what's going on in their districts, some things that have been done, some things that are going to be done, some community engagement that we're getting ready for as we come into the summer, and we'll share just some of the things that are going well. We'll share with you some of the concerns we have and where we kind of project to be going into the summer. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to actually share my slides, but I'm going to refer to some slides that I used to prepare when I briefed the chief on a number of different things. And I want to focus on, for some time now, the end of last year and into this year, we've put a lot of emphasis on our work down in the Central Business District. And for those of you who frequent the business district or downtown Silver Spring, you probably see some of the things that we've enacted, both with the addition of police officers, but also with the addition of technology with license plate readers, and also most notably the camera systems that we put on Georgia Avenue and on Bonifant. So I'm just going to give a little overview of what we're doing down there. We continue to make a lot of gun arrests, which is good that we're making the arrests. It's unfortunate that we're seeing the number of guns in downtown Silver Spring. Of those guns, quite a lot of them are the privately manufactured guns, or the ghost guns. If anybody has questions about that later on, I'll be happy to answer that. But what I've said on a number of different interviews or talks about this is a gun's a gun's a gun, whether it's a ghost gun or a real gun. Our job is to get them off the street, and we're doing a really good job. What you won't hear me say tonight is make reference to the Crime Suppression Task Force. We basically ended the task force, but we replaced it with a rebuilt community action team, DCAT. So basically, you haven't lost it. We just changed the name on you, and we rebuilt our DCAT team, which I'm really happy about. And in just a matter of a few months that they've been operating, they've done a significant amount of work, and I'm going to highlight some of the things that they've been doing down in the George sector specifically. Since January 1st of this year to April the 21st, the DCAT team, the District Community Action Team, they've conducted 708 traffic stops. And this is just in the Central Business District, basically. 708 traffic stops, 295 citations, 955 warnings, 42 EROs. Those would be the loud mufflers and the different various equipment violations on vehicles. They've arrested 8 DUIs and they have seized 6 firearms as a result of traffic stops. So I'm really happy with the DCAT. In addition, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention downtown, but you may start seeing, or you've seen Maryland State Police on Friday and Saturday nights. I have 2 Maryland State Police troopers that are working in downtown Silver Spring. On Friday nights, the troopers are attached to my DCAT team, and then on Saturday nights they're freelancing, and they're basically on their own, and they're working the George Avenue corridor and the Colesville Road corridor, and their primary focus is high visibility traffic enforcement. And as a result, since April the 8th, Maryland State Police has spent 144 hours of dedicated enforcement in downtown Silver Spring. That resulted in, hold on a second. I'm sorry. That resulted in 198 traffic stops, 67 citations, 115 warnings, 22 EROs, 1 DUI. They seized 1 firearm and they made 2 criminal arrests downtown. And that's just since April the 8th. They're going to remain as long as MSP will give them to me. I'm going to keep taking them, and they are really, they really enjoy the work down there, and we're seeing some good work, and they're helping us out in a number of different ways other than the traffic enforcement. But it's been a good relationship and a good partnership moving forward. So I want to just focus on something that's been going on. We've had a couple incidents over the last few weekends, but as many people know, Silver Spring really stays open all night long. And that is something that we've been in kind of debate with lawmakers, with government officials, with Chamber of Commerce, and with residents in downtown Silver Spring. I believe we need a closing time, but that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. But as a result of Silver Spring being open with so long in their hours, what we've seen is at 2, 3, 4, and sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning, these establishments that are still open in downtown Silver Spring, they kind of dump out into the roads, and we're seeing significant numbers of people and significant amounts of fights and disorderly conducts, and kind of like just unruly and somewhat out of control. On 2 occasions so far within the last month, our officers have had to call on officers from all five of the other districts in Montgomery County, Tacoma Park, Maryland State Police, and Park Police. All have had to respond at one time just to get control of the downtown, and that's kind of unacceptable. But we're definitely addressing it, but it's a matter of how we do this or how we resolve this moving forward. And so I'm really pushing for hopefully some closing times that will take this activity out of Silver Spring, and it'll kind of line us up with the rest of the region. We're kind of like the only show in town after 2 o'clock. And as a result, you just throw a whole bunch of different people from all over the region into Silver Spring, and it creates a problem. So hopefully we're gonna start working on that. I will tell you in the meantime, the stopgap, I'm looking at pulling resources from other parts of the county once again to help us out. But also what we're looking at is we're going to start having our day work officers come in at 4 o'clock in the morning rather than 6 o'clock in the morning. And they're just going to give us a couple hours of overtime on the front end of their day. But that way I can get more officers into downtown Silver Spring at 4 o'clock in the morning, just to address the uptick in fights and things that we're seeing in the early mornings on Friday to Saturday, Saturday to Sunday, and Sunday to Monday. So on those 3 or 4 particular nights, we're going to be putting more officers on the street to address these issues. I said a little bit about the camera systems. There's one on George Avenue right in front of Society Lounge. And that is And then there's also another one down on Bonifant Street in the area of Sweet Sweet Kitchen. We picked those locations because they are our kind of hottest areas where we're seeing a lot of activity. And the cameras, they're real time and they record. And so we're definitely using them. They've been productive. They've helped us to identify tag numbers, to see how many people are out in the street. And then also it kind of gives a picture of what we're dealing with. So when we're talking about these things with our government officials and, with the council and with the executive, we can give pictures to show, what does 30, 40, 50, sometimes 100 people look like on George Avenue at one given time. And so it's been really a helpful tool. And I do know that the department's now looking at the next set of camera systems. And like I've said in the past, we don't want to overdo it, but we're probably going to bring 2 more systems down into downtown Silver Spring and start, using them in some of our high crime areas of the Central Business District. And then finally, I want to talk about the LPR systems, the license plate readers. We are running almost at all 24 hours a day, just about. We're running license plate readers in downtown and other parts of Silver Spring. Just yesterday or last night, we had a stolen vehicle went through past one of our cruisers with license plate reader, and it was an identified stolen vehicle. We pursued that vehicle. Thankfully, it was a very short pursuit. The car wrecked, and it was 2 juveniles that were actually in possession of the car. They were both placed in custody, but it's an excellent example of how LPR helps us to take some bad characters off the road, and it's proving to be very useful. We're also running LPR on the district line at the circle at 16th Street and also down on Eastern Avenue. And that basically just gives us a heads up of what types of cars are coming up into Montgomery County from DC. And again, it's proven to be some good information, and it's a useful tool for crime fighting. I want to focus on one case real quick in particular. Lofts 24 as a community down on Bonifant, they've experienced quite a few incidents with shootings and just overall, bad behavior. And, the nightlife has definitely affected this community. In addition, they've also been victim of graffiti on one of their walls. And I will say that on March the 14th, I think it was, they woke up to graffiti on one of their walls. They called the police department. We went out and we identified it as actually a tagging from the gang, the Crips, which was concerning. So we called in our gang officers, and they came down and they started doing some investigations. And one of their detectives, believe it or not, I'm still just fascinated by her ability to take a single tag and start putting some names. The incident happened on March the 14th, and on April the 28th, our gang unit obtained warrants and served search warrants on addresses in the area. And Corporal Maines from the gang unit was able to make 2 arrests in the tagging. But the best part about this is when they made the arrest, they also confiscated a handgun and some drugs on the individuals. So a simple tagging or vandalism turns into a really nice gun arrest. And, again, taking these people off the street. And then finally, I will say, Alan had brought this up just prior to us, coming online here. There has been definitely a reduction in the car rallies and the modified cars in the region, or I should say in Montgomery County. I'm sure that the Lieutenant Kim will discuss a couple of the car rallies that we had up in the Ida sector in Burtonsville. But we were very successful in, I think, bringing in enough resources to make Montgomery County not a hostful county for their event. One of them in particular, we were able to run them out of Burtonsville fairly quickly, although they did cause a lot of damage, not damage, but a lot of havoc. And they took over an intersection in Burtonsville. We were quickly able to get up there and get them out of there into PG County. We notified PG and they took it from there. I will say, in an effort to, instead of chasing these guys around all the time, we had an event that we learned of a car group that was going to meet at the Cherry Hill Target parking lot. And instead of playing cat and mouse and chasing them, I actually had community engagement go up there with some of my motor officers. And as these cars came into the parking lot, we engaged them. We advised them that as long as they weren't going to rev their vehicles and do burnouts and light off fireworks, and that they were just relatively quiet and just showing off their cars, we really could work with them. And the night was actually successful. We maintained a presence up there throughout the entire event. It was just a couple hours, and they self-exited the parking lot, and we actually had a pretty decent rapport. And the moral of the story there is that a lot of these groups are pretty decent people, and it just takes a small little group to kind of mess it up. So we're trying to work with those who are willing to have just these meetups, but stay within the law and work with us. But obviously, it always doesn't go that way. I will say the rest of the region, Baltimore City, PG County, Laurel, they've been having some significant issues with these car rallies. But I really think that a lot of the reasons, and I don't want to jinx it, is we really brought in a lot of staffing, a lot of officers to prepare for these events. And I really feel like they start seeing so many police that they realize it's not a good place to be if you want to run your car up and down our roads. So I'm really happy with that. Well, and I'll round this out because I know there's a couple on the call that they want to update on traffic enforcement. I will tell you that Central Motors, both their day work and their evening car motors, they've been spending quite a bit of time in Silver Spring on various nights or various weeks. And their efforts, I believe, have really paid off. We haven't had a fatal collision in some time now. Like Alan said, we're not seeing as many of the cars racing up and down 29 and New Hampshire Avenue and Georgia Avenue as much as we saw in the past or in last year's, going towards the end of last year. So those Central Motors will remain working in the district, and usually they focus on our major arterial roadways. So they stay on Georgia Avenue from the Beltway to the DC line. And then they also operate from Route 29, basically from the Central Business District all the way to the Howard County line. They spend a lot of time on 198, Powder Mill Road, and, all places in between, usually on the major arterial roadways. And our traffic complaint officer is knocking down, community complaints. He averages about 6 to 10 complaints a week, and he tries to address as many issues as possible. A lot of his issues that he's dealing with are parking related, and he's had a lot of success at making people happy or getting rid of unregistered motor vehicles or larger commercial style vehicles from neighborhoods, and he's had a lot of success. So I'm going to stop now and turn this over to Lieutenant Kim, who's going to actually, you know what? Let's have Lieutenant Jensen talk real quick, because I want her to talk about the compliance checks that she's been doing in the very early hours of the morning in downtown Silver Spring. And it's an excellent example of how we're using other stakeholders other than the police to make some significant impacts on businesses and their services of alcohol and tobacco products and things like that. So I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Jensen.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I know
Yep.
my feet was okay. It was freezing up a little bit before. I'm still driving. Thanks for having me, everyone. So I want to highlight on, as you know, our midnight shifts, our 2 midnight shifts fall under my span of control, and I just want to reassure everyone that when you are hopefully peacefully and soundly sleeping at night, to know that there are a good group of men and women that are out there that are keeping the community safe. A lot of what Commander McBain touched on with the handgun arrests, the drug arrests, and so on, a lot of those men and women have been part of that. I know that we just had a really good arrest earlier in the week that focused around theft from autos, in which that suspect was actually wanted on a homicide warrant out of Philadelphia. So there's a lot of good work that's being put forth thanks to a lot of the supplemental officers that we have from the state troopers, a lot of the overtime going to keep all of the community, but especially downtown Silver Spring, safe at night. So as Commander McBain said, and I spoke about, I believe, the last time that we met, since early January, we have been in a partnership with some very key community stakeholders to do the compliance checks and establishment checks of many of our businesses, the hookah lounges, the bars in downtown Silver Spring. Some of those partners are our alcohol beverage services, our alcohol tobacco compliance, even Department of Environmental Protection, just to make sure that there aren't any noise violations, and if there are, that they're being addressed. So we've been working with these groups very frequently, and it's not just enforcement. It's enforcement where it's needed, but there's also an educational piece behind it. So, obviously we know that, we want, most of those business partnerships to thrive within the Silver Spring community. So it's not all that, that we're there and we're trying to, work against them. We're trying to work with the establishments. We're trying to get them that educational piece when it comes to if it's serving, if it's just, license identification, to make sure that we don't have, underage drinkers in the establishments, you name it. We're doing it so that everyone can thrive, so that the community, the business owners, law enforcement, as well as some of these government entities, so that we're all on the same page, and that, at the end of the night, it's quality of life issues that are being addressed and that everyone is remaining safe. So we are continuing to do that. We have a couple more that are set up here for the near future, where we're just going out different, various hours, various days of the week. And so far, I think it's really been pulling together, and it's been boding well for our downtown community. Commander, is there anything else that you wanted me to touch on in regards to that?
No, that's all good. And before I turn it over to Lieutenant Kim, I want to just go over the some numbers in regards to the number of guns that we're seeing. The third district, we have seized 19 privately manufactured guns, which is the ghost guns, 19 of them. And the county as a total has seized 94 of them. That's one of those stats that's good and bad. It's bad that there's that many guns out there, but it's good that we're getting them. And the latest for guns in the county, we are up 39% as an entire agency. Last year at this time, we had seized 370 guns, and we're now at 513. So significant amount of guns that are out there. But again, we're seizing them, and that's always a good thing. So with that, and I'll answer any questions later about that, but I want to turn it over to Lieutenant Kim so we can kind of keep this going. I think I got a little long-winded there, and I apologize.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here again, and I appreciate the opportunity to have this dialogue. So Commander actually talked a lot about what's going on in the district overall, including the IDA sector. Just to remind everybody, the IDA sector is the Silver Spring district. So that goes from Howard County line, so that includes Burnsville, and then it comes down the portion of the Calverton, so it borders PG again, and then comes down to White Oak, and everything in between. So it's, like I said, it's the northern part of our district. And just to give you just general statistics for crimes in the IDA sectors from the year to date. So robberies is on par with the number of robberies that we've had last year. Aggravated assault is also on the same page as we've had last year. Burglaries have increased compared to last year. And then larcenies, that's thefts, have gone down, and then auto theft, we have seen an increase. Let me explain the burglary part of that. Recently, I think I mentioned it last time as well, so that some of those numbers are being captured in the same data. So we've had a string of commercial burglaries at the end of 2021, going into January, and I reported last time that we made an arrest in that. Since that there was a single night spree, what we call it a spree of commercial burglaries at the Outlet Drive. And that one, our detectives are able to link as a possible trend in the region and related to Prince George's County, Anne Arundel, and Howard. So they're working collaboratively with the other jurisdictions and working their leads together to close those incidents. And then a significant portion of the burglaries that I'm talking about also is affected by the number of shed burglaries. And those are usually unattached outdoor sheds at the single family homes and whatnot. And they could be locked or they could be unlocked. And a lot of times we're finding reports that they were unlocked. And because they are not attached to the housing, not everybody is checking on them on a daily basis. So there's a delayed reporting, as well as not knowing, and so especially before the summer and the grass and all that yard work having to be done, earlier on, a lot of tools were stolen out of these sheds. So that's the cause for some of the increase in the burglaries. Our detectives are actively working on that. They have successes in getting some ring videos that have captured some of the incidents. But if you are in Sandy Spring area, obviously please lock your sheds. If you have videos, if you capture anything suspicious, please report that to us so that our detectives can do their due diligence. So Commander already talked about the gun arrests and privately manufactured firearms. Since I last reported to you in February, just in the what I call an IDA sector, and this is not like crime suppression team, this is the officers who are responding to calls for service, responding to 911 calls, and in between also conducting traffic enforcements and doing their due diligence, and have made 4 handgun arrests during that time as well. So not just in downtown Silver Spring, unfortunately, throughout the district, where officers are making regular handgun arrests as well. And then Commander talked about the large disordered car meetup. One that actually stands out occurred on April 2nd. This is probably the larger one. There was a few smaller incidents that really did not get out of hand at all. this is the only one that kind of where there was a little bit of a intersection takeovers that we see that, we're trying to prevent. And so this led to, it was at the Burnsville Crossing Shopping Center area, as well as a couple surrounding neighborhoods. So officers from all districts, so MSP, Park Police, and a couple specialized units were actually deployed to have a safe dispersal and to discourage through crowd control. Understand the challenges. I think Commander already talked about this because of the dangerousness of, we can't really chase them. That's caused more safety hazards for the bystanders in the neighborhoods. But officers were able to work together and disperse the crowd without any major incidents, and use a lot of de-escalation restraints to achieve that effect. Because this crowd, when they actually went over to Prince George's County, they jumped and attacked a police cruiser and an officer. So luckily, our officers were able to disperse them out of our area without any major incidents. In addition to that, I was talking about the robbery. There was a robbery at New Hampshire Avenue that actually led to the same suspect committing thefts down in Silver Spring, and officers were able to make an arrest on. I think Commander talked about Lieutenant Jensen talked about the suspect from Philadelphia with a homicide. And then we've also had a couple of major larceny arrests. So Target and Giant, they're often, victims of serial shoplifters. They're usually organized. They target a particular chain of stores repeatedly. Home Depot, like a lot of this chain stores, commercial stores, are often become a victim of retail theft. Our detectives and also patrol officers have worked with Target and Giant on 2 different string of thefts, and were able to make an arrest. And with the Target, I want to highlight is well over $20,000 worth of loss from Target was as a result of one particular group of suspects, and our officers were able to close that. And I think they're going to be headed towards being the in the area biggest recovery of losses. So case closures as a result of collaboration with the business and our officers. And then we are also hosting a community day at the Oakleaf community on May 26th. And then there's a question in the chat about parking lot shooting. And I think that's the incident in April at the parking lot of White Oak. Only thing that I can tell you about that situation, officers received multiple calls about a shooting incident, but understand that no victim came forward, no suspects came forward, no witnesses came forward in that incident. So in terms of whether they had long guns or any of that, I cannot report on, and why they're heavily armed, I can't even venture to guess, since nobody cooperated and came forward to report and will work with the police officers. That's all I have, unless I have questions. Commander, was there anything else that you would like me to address?
Yeah, could you just talk about your 3-on-3 basketball tournament? And then maybe there's some people out here that have kids or grandkids or, friends and family in the area that would like to participate.
Sure. So we are partnering with Department of Recreation, as well as being sponsored by our police foundation, as well as a few other businesses and community stakeholders, to host a free 3-on-3 basketball tournament for ages up from 12 to 17-year-old students. We'll have 2 different brackets. One for younger age, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, and a second bracket for older, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. It will be a 4-week tournament. They will be able to register for free and participate. You can register as a team or as an individual. Registration is done by the Department of Recreation. They have put it on their website, on their Facebook, and I got a confirmation that it will be on our Facebook as well for information on it. And then it's from June 10th through July 1st, 4 weeks on Fridays between 5 to 10 p.m. at the White Oak Recreation Center. And boys and girls are welcome to play. Again, completely for free, have fun. There'll be some food, there will be other activities in between games as well at the rec center.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. And so with that, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Lieutenant Parker, and he can talk about things going on in the Piney Branch, Long Branch area of the district.
All right, good evening. Thank you. So the first thing I want to start with, there was a series of robberies that occurred in between our last meeting and tonight's meeting for a stretch of about 3 weeks in March, starting March 5th. And just a reminder for anybody that's not familiar with our Henry sector, we primarily cover the Long Branch community, so Piney Branch Road area, and then we also cover Woodmore, Four Corners, Northampton, Mount Pisgah. Those are the main communities, just to, for everybody's reference. So these robberies took place beginning around March 5th and continued to about March 25th. Basically, the area of Greenwood Avenue, University Boulevard, Piney Branch Road, and what was concerning for us and why this quickly became a priority for our district was the suspects were 3 males targeting lone female victims and robbing them of their purse. One incident, the victim was beaten pretty severely, so we put quite a large amount of resources into solving this. And like I said, this happened between our last meeting and this meeting. In that time frame, our detectives identified, located all 3 suspects, and they've all been arrested. So we'll be following that case closely in the court, and hopefully it'll be held accountable. But that is excellent work by our detective section. They really did a fantastic job, used numerous resources to identify these suspects, and really a big takeaway and a message for our victims is, you know, we certainly don't want to see anybody hurt trying to retain their properties, to not resist. But the message to our suspects is, you know, you're not going to come to Silver Spring and commit your crime and slip across a line and get away with it. The 3 men that were arrested, 2 were from Hyattsville, and the other one has an unknown address or no fixed address. So great job by detectives there. And that's it for the robberies. The next thing I want to talk about with everybody, and I think we touched on it last time, is just some efforts that we're doing in the Long Branch community. There's been a lot of developments since we met last, because the community center that was being used as a temporary homeless shelter has closed. It's gone through a lot of renovations, and it's set to reopen at the end of the month. So part of our efforts in the community down between Flower and University on Piney Branch is to address some of these quality of life issues that we're seeing. And we receive complaints from the business community, from residents, from Long Branch Library, and from the community center itself when it was open, and soon to be reopened. So to address that, we've been increasing foot patrol in that area, because, as you know, a lot of it is not accessible to a vehicle, and some of these issues get off the beaten path. And what we're trying to foster is a more family-friendly environment. So when people travel through the park, to the library, to the community center, or to the businesses, they feel safe. And to do that, we've been working really hand in hand with Park Police, because our jurisdictions are so closely tied into each other in that area. So our officers have increased their foot patrol, and one really positive thing is we have several officers signed up for our mountain bike school, so that we will be able to add that capability and increase their range to be able to do bike patrol in addition to foot patrol. And that does several things for us. We're able to deter crime. We're able to identify things that are going on where an officer in a cruiser wouldn't see it. But we're also able to encounter people, you know, a person or a child walking home from school is more inclined to be able to talk to an officer that rides up on a bicycle than he is an officer in a car with his windows rolled up. So those are all positive things that we're looking forward to down in there, especially moving into the summertime. In fact, we just met with the library today to discuss some of those issues. And we're also working with Health and Human Services to provide some outreach to some of the people that are in that area that didn't move to the shelter on Neville Street and for whatever reason might be in need of some services, or stay in the area and use either county buildings or local businesses for shelter. Last, I've got, I just want to touch on the theft from auto problem. We talked about that last time too. Right now, we're experiencing a small uptick in the Northampton community. So that area has experienced in the last month 2 airbag thefts in that specific area, but 7 in Henry sector. So just and kind of an ongoing trend or a message as far as reminding people to lock their vehicles. That seems to be, unfortunately, the easiest way for our suspects to enter the vehicles, is they're just trying every door handle, and they're going with the easy vehicle that's unlocked. And then May 21st is our Long Branch Community Center reopening festival. Recreation Department has invited us to participate. So of course we're going to be there, and our recruitment unit's going to be there too. So if you know anybody that has an interest in being a sworn police officer or a dispatcher or professional staff with our department, the recruiters will be there on May 21st, noon to 3, I believe that is. And we're looking forward to Long Branch coming back online, and a lot of good things to come in the summer down there. That's it for us.
Good deal. Thank you, Kevin. So I just want to highlight a couple things. Lieutenant Parker, when he got to the district, he took over for Lieutenant Ingstrom. And, you know, my big focus was re-engaging Piney Branch and Long Branch in those areas of the county, of the district. What we've done is a lot of times we're our own worst enemy when it comes to reporting, you know, what type of, how much community engagement we're doing, or what type of community engagement we're doing. We've taken some substantial steps in working with our communications division, and these foot patrols, we're going to start monitoring the number of hours that we're out in these neighborhoods. We're going to start it in Long Branch, but my goal is to actually expand it in other areas of the district where foot patrols could be useful. And this is just a great area to start. But you know, really, the way we see if this is a success or not is, you know, do we see, you know, a decline in quality of life issues, urinating in public, drinking in public, things like that, where if we're out in the public, we're out of our police cars, we're engaged in the community, you know, we just start building it, you know, it's kind of like an old school way that we got away from. We got into these police cars because we were kind of pulled all over the place, but we're actually putting you know, a pretty good amount of overtime into these foot patrols. I've asked community engagement from our headquarters to come down as well, to invest some time in there. And so my hope is that people on this call are going to start seeing the officers out and about. Usually they're going to be paired up. I do know the Park Police potentially will be coming down into the Long Branch area on their horses, which would be a nice little, you know, change of scenery for some people down there. So we're looking at a number of different ways. Moving into the summer, I just want to touch on one last thing, is that is community engagement. You're going to start seeing a lot of pop-up events, and we'll get them all out on our next door. What I'll also do is I'll try to make sure that I can get the information out to Alan so that he can push it to others and other groups that he's involved in. And so, you know, the focus there is to get all over the district, to spend some time in the Calverton area, up in Burtonsville, Briggs Cheney, and also, you know, we're never going to abandon downtown Silver Spring, but, you know, kind of all points in between, just to reach the community, not just with Coffee with the Cops, but with different events. We, you know, Glenda Franco, my community engagement officer, she just did, I guess it was 2 weekends ago, we went to Soldier Fit up in Briggs Cheney. We did a Coffee with the Cop at the gym. There was about 30 people in participation there, and we just had a really good time. So we're trying to hit different locations at different times of the day, you know, during the week and on the weekends. And I'm hoping that it just continues to build and strengthen our relationship with the community. With that, I think we've talked for about 45 minutes, Alan. So I'll turn it back to you for any questions, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Commander. One of the things that came up in the chat was the shootout at near the American Legion and the county parking garage. And I think Lieutenant Kim tried to explain some of it in the chat, but it was a big deal in the community. I wonder if you could say something about that.
I'll let Lieutenant Kim just give I know she had responded in the chat room, but I'll let her speak about that.
Okay, so that incident was back in March, end of March, and actually, officer that was working off duty in the downtown Silver Spring area, as well as our officers, they heard the gunfire and responded quickly, and was able to take the subject who was in possession of a firearm right away. They recovered 2 firearms from that incident. Unfortunately, I can't get into the much details of why or how everything unfolded, because it is still an active investigation, and our detectives are still continuing to work the case. Even with the one arrest, that doesn't necessarily close an incident. So that's the extent that I can actually talk about. You know, luckily, again, we had a lot of officers in the area, and they were able to respond quickly and make the arrest. Again, this is very similar to some of the other incidents that I was talking about earlier. When these shootings occur, we don't always have a lot of witnesses or people who are cooperating or coming forward to work with our detectives to help close these cases. Like I said, with this one, fortunately, officers were able to respond right away and take the suspect into custody and remove 2 firearms from the community, and that's what I have. Also, I just wanted to highlight that I just put a link of our 3-on-3 basketball, the Facebook page from the Department of Rec has. That's there if you have anybody who's interested or can forward on to anybody else. Any other questions?
Cool. So I'm also going to follow up to that question, Alan. And you know, just a few weeks ago, in the Good Hope area of the 4th District, they had a homicide, a shooting that had just occurred in the late afternoon. The the shooters or the individuals from that incident got in a car and fled towards Silver Spring. It was Silver Spring officers that apprehended those individuals for the homicide. And the reason I highlight that is we just, it seems like we definitely have a reduction in resources in the number of officers, but I can tell you that what I'm putting out on the street is my minimum staffing at the very least. And we're also bringing in quite a few officers on overtime to fill, positions and make sure we have adequate coverage throughout the entire district. And in that instance, it was a shift change, and the oncoming shift was able to make that apprehension. And that's what happens with a lot of these incidents. And then one other thing I really want to just kind of not forget to talk about when we're talking about downtown. So in our efforts to increase the number of police officers down there, we've been working with a couple of the nightclub establishments. Some of them are not so willing to work with us, but others are. And these nightclubs are starting to hire off-duty Montgomery County police officers to do security outside of their businesses. And that's proving to be beneficial for our on-duty officers and the overtime officers that we continue to run down there, that I've been running since last October. And also some of the businesses have agreed and have taken the financial burden as to buy metal detectors, handheld metal detectors. And so they're starting to do sweeps of the people coming into their establishment as well. At the overall way in that we're handling downtown, I believe that the guns that we're getting and arrests we're making are a result of us not having as many shootings. And I don't want to jinx us, but Silver Spring, the 3rd district, is the only district in the county that has not had a homicide this year. And I'm very happy and proud of that statistic. And I just want to, I just want to keep the pressure up, and we certainly are doing that.
Thank you, Commander. Anybody else have any questions? Let's just take advantage of this opportunity. Kelly, you're raising your hand. So I've got another question, and you all please ask your questions. 2 questions. One was with the technology that you talked about on Georgia Avenue in Bonifant. Are people complaining about that, or are neighbors complaining about that intrusion, that electronic intrusion? Some people, before it was deployed, had some anxiety about it. I wonder what that is. And then after that, Karen Roper, please. But
yeah, so the cameras have been very, very, very well received. I think there's always going to be those in our community that will always question, like, the big brother effect there. But that's not the purpose of it. It's high visibility. It's just making sure that people know that we have ways of, just making sure that the people who are using downtown Silver Spring are safe. It's a tool that we use just to help us to stay safer. And also, we have the ability to watch certain parts of the downtown without actually having police officers there. So they actually, Chamber of Commerce, several residential communities from downtown have said nothing but good stuff about it. I really haven't heard any objection.
Thank you very much. Karen Roper, question? Karen, do you have a question? She's got her hand up.
I'm here.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me now? Thanks, Alan. Hi, Commander. I'm Karen Roper with Fenton Village, Inc. I don't know if you've heard, but we got the grant to put lights in the alley parallel to Georgia, between Thayer and Silver Spring. We'll be working on that this summer. My question is, there's been some serious crimes earlier in the evening. I think there was a recent hijacking, and I'm wondering if these efforts have reduced crime in the hours, say, between 7 and midnight, as opposed to the overnight, late hour crimes.
Yes. So when you look at the downtown area and you try to break that out in its own little kind of reporting area, it's I want to say, like, we started out the year with looking really successful, and we saw a decline in robberies. We saw there was an increase in auto thefts, which is a whole nother story, but we were starting to see crime going down. And then, I kind of talk of it all the time. As we get warmer and we get closer to summer, we start seeing upticks. I want to say we're in a lot better shape than we were last year at this time. And I always say, I don't think, we're never going to eliminate all crime, but I think the efforts that we've been putting out there have what I'm hearing from all kinds of different people, the Chamber of Commerce, residents who live downtown, businesses that are, feeling safer. I talk with a number of different people. I think the atmosphere in downtown Silver Spring is better. I do agree with you where we're going to put the lights, or where you're going to put the lights. We had some issues down there, but I think we also jumped on that very quickly and started, and it's almost like I'm chasing my tail sometimes, because, when I put a certain amount of effort or officers in this location at certain times, it seems like it's just like at the end of last year, we were having carjackings and robberies at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, and who would have thought that? And it took a significant amount of officers and a kind of a collaboration of different resources, but we made a ton of arrests for that investigation is still kind of ongoing, but regionally we took some really bad guys off the street, and so I think it's just something where, like I said earlier in my presentation, I just can't let up off the gas pedal. But I do think that we're in better shape now than we were, ending 21, if that makes sense to you.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. We're hoping the lights will help the employees feel more protected, because they're scared to take the trash out.
Yeah, congratulations.
So I'm gonna just follow up on that. The most recent, it wasn't a carjacking, it was a robbery at Fair and Spring that you were referring to, and actually officers made arrest on that.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
And congratulations, Karen, on getting that grant.
Yeah.
That was big news. Just want to acknowledge that we're joined by our councilman, Tom Hucker, and the director of the Silver Spring Regional Sector, who's also a board member, Jacob Newman. So thanks to both of you for joining us. Anybody else have any questions? Let me ask this: there was a robbery, a gun drawn at the McDonald's at Colesville Road and Wayne Avenue during this last couple of weeks. That seemed to be unusual. I wonder what the disposition of that was. Was somebody taken into custody? Did you make an arrest, Commander?
You got me on that one. I don't have any information for you on that one. I can certainly follow up, but I don't have the information to follow up with you on that.
Yeah, there was a video that was actually posted to social media showing this guy drawing a gun. I don't know when he didn't get his iced tea or something like that, but it was pretty concerning.
I will tell you, when you talk about robberies, especially down there, something a crime like that, it deploys our robbery section at headquarters. I do know, I frequently talk with the supervisors up there at headquarters. They still have detectives that are working late night hours just to listen to the radio and make sure that they have very quick responses to those things. But again, as far as the McDonald's is concerned, I'll have to follow up with you later and get you that information.
I appreciate it. At the beginning of your presentation, you talked about traffic stops in downtown Silver Spring.
Yep.
I'm a little confused because I thought the conventional wisdom is that we were going to go away from traffic stops and have, I know we don't have the automated enforcement, but you mentioned a bunch of traffic stops, and from them you talked about, finding some guns and things like that. So I wonder, what situation, leads to a traffic stop? Is it just excessive, erratic driving? Is it speeding? Why do you go to traffic stops?
All the above. So when we're focused on an area, like say downtown Silver Spring, we're focused on emergency repair order violations. We're on traffic violations, on DUI, suspicion of DUI cases. We're just, it's a high visibility initiative to make the streets safer. But as a result, I will tell you that a large number of the guns that are being seized in Silver Spring are as a result of a traffic stop. So, I intend to continue to do that. I know that there's concerns about disparities in traffic stops, and there's been a lot of debate over whether police should continue to do that and whatnot. But the reality is it's an effective tool to combat not only violent crime but also make our streets safer. One of the a lot of my complaints that I receive daily are speeding, traffic complaints, and daytime, nighttime, weekends, overnight. So, the idea that we would kind of get out of the business of police generated traffic stops, I don't think we're going to go there. I hope not. But I do also know that the county is they're very much working with the vendor in our automated traffic enforcement. I do know that the program is finally expanding because they have now, I think ratified the contract with that vendor. And I just spoke with automated traffic this week, and I do know that they're going to start putting in more locations in the Silver Spring area, particularly 29 Burnt Mills, and a couple other locations up on 29. The reason you don't see automation in downtown Silver Spring is right now the way the law is written, you cannot have automated traffic enforcement in a central business district, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there's probably ways around that, but that's why you don't see like automated speed cameras on Georgia Avenue at say Spring. But I know for a fact that we're very much expanding our automated traffic, and I think that is a good direction because it takes one, it saves lives, and two, that is the best form of sustained saturated enforcement. It just doesn't go away. It doesn't need to eat, and it doesn't need to sleep. So we're going to continue to expand in that.
So along those lines, you talked about, I think you called them EROs, EPOs?
Yes, sir.
So we were complaining about that at the end of last year, right? There seemed to be, dozens of cars with loud mufflers that were racing up and down, our neighborhoods. It was really concerning. You mentioned that you've given some citations or some orders that are related to modified mufflers. I'm wondering how you make a determination to stop a car if you think that the muffler is modified and it's some kind of disturbance.
Yeah, so the it's been a while since I've done a lot of this traffic stuff, but there's certain sections in the annotated code of Maryland and Comar that speaks about the mufflers and whether they're modified from manufacturers, the way the manufacturer built the vehicle. A lot of the violations are based on the decibel, the sound, the loud sound that they're making. And so when an officer pulls over a car based on the ridiculously loud sound or the high pitched muffler, that officer's so there's no fine associated with that. That officer is issuing an emergency repair order. What that requires the owner of the car to do is to bring it to a mechanic, and then to make sure that the muffler is not illegally modified, and or fix it so that it's back to the original manufacturer's design of the vehicle. And so if a person doesn't remodify or change that vehicle back, it falls on the MVA to basically they suspend the registration, or they make it so that you can't re-register your motor vehicle. And in essence, it causes the owner some problems as far as registration is concerned. And really, the mufflers is just one thing that we're looking at, but there's a whole host of other things. I mean, bald tires, cracked windshields, brake lights out, headlights out, different safety repair orders that don't need to be addressed with fines. It's simply a way that we can tell the owner of the vehicle they've got to get the vehicle fixed. The easiest way to understand why we do emergency repair orders in Maryland is if you compare us to Virginia. Virginia has yearly inspections. Maryland does not. So once you get your vehicle inspected in the state of Maryland, unless you sell that vehicle is really never going to be inspected again. So the state of Maryland has relied on law enforcement to keep the inspection of these vehicles and keep them in a safe working order.
Lieutenant Parker, did you have anything that you wanted to add about that?
No, finish that conversation. I have something on that robbery at McDonald's that you're talking about.
Oh, well, please.
All right. You threw me off with the gun. That's what I thought you were talking about, a different incident. So I was actually on that incident that you're referring to. That was on the 5th. That the robbery was actually involving a knife. He vaulted the counter and took the proceeds from the drawer. So one of our officers was on an unrelated call, actually, when the robbery was dispatched, observed the suspect on the red line southbound into DC. So the pictures that the media have are the best images we have for that suspect, but we're pretty certain that he fled into DC after that, and our robbery section from headquarters is handling that case.
Thank you very much. Knife instead of gun. My apologies, everybody. More questions for our 3rd District representatives. Amy? You're muted, Amy.
The commander mentioned in his opening remarks a couple of things about recruiting fairs and so forth. I wonder if you could touch on that a little bit, because we all know there's a shortage of officers, and you've got retirements coming up, and if you could talk about what you're doing to make sure that the public safety is not impacted by not having enough officers out there.
Yeah, so I think I've gone over this before, but I basically have minimum staffing requirements for day work, my evening, and my midnight officers. Currently, my day work is 13 officers and 1 supervisor. Evenings is 16 officers and 1 supervisor. And then midnights, sometime, I guess, I would say in the latter part of 2021, I increased my midnight minimum staffing from 9 to 10. So every single night, a minimum of 10 officers with 1 supervisor needs to come in for midnights. That seems to be a good number for us right now, and I think it's a realistic increase for the midnights. Now, in addition to that, ever since, so back in October 21, I have 4 officers that are coming in at various times in the nighttime and into the morning. they are working overtime, hours, and they were part of the task force that I kind of put together at the end of in October of 21. So I have an additional 4 officers coming in for peak times of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. Also on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I bring in additional officers. And then when we're talking about minimum staffing, that doesn't take into account my my DCAT, my district community action team. They are they kind of freelance. They're not driven by the radio. They listen to the radio and they kind of move around the district. And actually they're spending quite a bit of time in downtown right now. But I am putting the resources down there. I think I said in my opening remarks, in order to deal with the things that have been cropping up on the weekends, specifically on Saturday and Sunday mornings, I'm starting to bring in, actually, we're getting ready to start bringing in day work officers. So instead of 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to start them at 4 o'clock in the morning, just to make sure I have adequate coverage. But something else to consider, I know we talk about downtown Silver Spring quite a bit, but when we talk about this minimum staffing levels, all those officers are not downtown. I have minimum requirements for officers to be in my Ida sector and in my Henry sector and spread throughout the entire 3rd district. So, I'm meeting those needs. It's tough. I will say that I am using a lot of overtime to hold people over and call people in. And I'll continue to do that. What I talked about from the very beginning and what I continue to talk about is, I warned of it and now we're seeing it, but we're seeing a little bit of fatigue and overtime fatigue. And basically these officers, we have to watch out for how many hours they're working, but also we got to make sure that they're staying healthy and that they're awake when they're, working over. And so we just got to watch how we utilize the overtime. And quite frankly, some of the officers are starting to kind of peter out, but we're taking steps to give them a break and kind of get them to recharge their batteries and kind of keep moving through the summer. So we're covering things.
Great question,
You're
Amy.
doing some partnerships with like Maryland State Police. That probably helps too, right?
It certainly does. I mean, you if you think about it, it's only 2 troopers, but that's 2 more guys that or gals that are down there helping us out. When we do need it, we move resources from other parts of the county down here. The idea would be that we not move them based on an emergency, but maybe we start pushing some resources from up county down. And so we're kind of talking about those types of moves. But for right now, we're doing really good. And again, I'd like to capitalize on or kind of reaffirm something that doesn't affect my budget or county budget is the fact that some of the businesses down county that or in the central business district that are staying open, they're paying for part-time officers to work. And the beauty of that is that we have communication with them, and it's just added resources down there that don't really cost me anything. So I'll take anything I can get as far as that's concerned.
Lieutenant Kim, if you could put some information about the 3-on-3 basketball in the chat or send it to us later, we would appreciate it.
I sent the Facebook link in chat already.
Okay, I appreciate that. Commander McBain,
Sure.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but a neighbor raised this question. We live along Wayne Avenue, near the intersection of Dale Drive, near the Silver Spring International Middle School.
Yep.
And we've been experiencing a lot of construction related to the Purple Line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's less problematic during the day, but recently we've had some work that's been going on at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, where WSSC contractors or Maryland Department of Transportation contractors have been using equipment to cut metal pipes at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They've been driving machinery back and forth. One of our neighbors complained that there were people on her property she described it as shining Klieg lights into her windows. And she alerted everybody, including the police. Somebody said, call the police. She called the police, and she said that nobody ever responded to that. Now, I don't know that's for a fact, but that's what she reported to us. And I'm wondering whether our neighbors should expect a police response for every call that they make. So this was particularly, this woman has lots of problems with disruption around her house because it's right along Wayne Avenue. But I'm wondering, should our neighbors expect some kind of response from the police when they call, 911?
Yeah, so something like that is obviously not an emergency. And so that would be something where I think you would call the 301-279-8000, unless you felt it was some type of emergency. At the very least, if we're going to hold the call based on other serious calls, that's the information that should be conveyed to the person making the complaint to our communications. Some of these things where there's an easy answer or solution that doesn't really require the police to actually engage a second party, you might get a phone call. I'm not saying that's the exact desired response, but sometimes, again, when you start rolling through the calls for service, we have to kind of prioritize what we're going to and what we're not, but we try to answer every call, and we simply don't allow an officer to make that judgment on his own. It's got to come through a supervisor, and there's got to be legitimate reasons for why we wouldn't respond out. Now, I want to talk to you real quick about the Purple Line construction, and really a lot of the DOT construction. Those crews are receiving special permits, and so they actually apply for exemptions to working in those early morning hours. And I think it's kind of like the double-edged sword. We all want the Purple Line to get done, and I don't think it's going to get done during the daylight hours only. And so but I can tell you that when these crews get the exemptions and get these permits, the police have no authority to really shut that down. And so that could also have been why the police didn't respond out to the lady that you were talking about. However, I will say that she should have received a response back of why we wouldn't be coming.
Well, I appreciate that. Anybody else have any other questions for Commander McBain and his lieutenants as we come close to the 9 o'clock hour? Well, I just want to say, I want to acknowledge our board members that are present on the call, Amy Henchy, Julio Murillo, Yudi Rodriguez, and Jacob Newman. Thank you all for joining us. Commander McBain, thank you so much. I don't think we're going to get together again until September, October, unless something unusual happens.
Okay.
So we really appreciate the work that you and your staff do to keep us safe. And I think you've got a lot of good news to report. I think the partnerships that you have with the state police and the park police and some of the other agencies, and your emphasis on sort of regional cooperation and exchange of information is making a big difference. So thank you all so much for what you do. And we appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you very much, Alan, and I appreciate it from everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Hooker.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Alan.